And good morning, and welcome into the Tuesday morning viewpoint for this Tuesday morning, December the 23rd. I'm your host, Randy Williams. 334 875 1490 and 1492 are the numbers to call if you have comments or questions. And also, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, the selmapostherald.com YouTube channel, as we are live streaming on the YouTube channel as well. How do you feel this morning? Certainly hope your morning is going well and things are getting off to a good start. And weather-wise, we ought to be pretty good for the next couple of days in terms of temperatures. It won't be cold, and it certainly won't be hot, but it will be comfortable. The high temperatures in the 70s, the low in the upper 40s to low 50s. That is at least all the way through Sunday. Sunday, we got a cold front coming through, and it's going to probably start going back to normal for this time of year. Okay. And let's see, where do we start? Well, I've got a couple of things that we probably should make you aware of. One of them is the fact that many of the, or some doctors are concerned about this new strand of flu, surging cases of flu nationally. At least 1,900 people have been reportedly died from the virus nationwide, including 3 children. Washington, D.C. Public Health Laboratory doctors are busy testing diseases that could become a public health concern. Um, Really, the only time that people see us, says Dr. Jocelyn Hauser, is when there's a public health emergency. She's the director of the Washington, D.C. Public Health Laboratory. Now, that's about 1,000 miles from here, but they study what's happening across the nation. And she says the doctors' offices and hospitals around the country send them swabs collected from patients. She says we receive those samples and then log them into our information system. Those results are then sent to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This year, the CDC is particularly concerned about growing cases of the flu. The latest data released on this past Friday shows that there have been at least 4.6 million flu cases so far this season, along with 49,000 hospitalizations and 1,900 deaths in the United States alone. The dominant strain causing the surge in illnesses is subclade K, a mutation of influenza A. She says, we think this subclade, Dr. Andrew Pacos, professor, says that we think this subclade K virus is evading population immunity, meaning more people are susceptible to infection. And Professor Pacos is with Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. While doctors and the CDC said the best protection is the flu vaccine, Pacos said this year the shot may not be enough. It has mutations that may allow it to evade some but not all of the influenza vaccine induced protection. He says, as millions of people prepare to travel and gather this week for the holidays, there's growing concern that cases may spike, especially as cases are surging around the globe. Children, adults 65 and older, and those with underlying medical conditions are particularly vulnerable to the flu. And I've, as I've been moving around, I think one day last week, in fact, uh, I was in one of our local stores, retail stores, and there was a child or two and they were coughing and sneezing in such a way that I could see where if it was contagious, it could spread to somebody else. So we have to really be careful. I notice more people are wearing masks again. I would imagine that helps. And certainly, that 6 foot rule that was being practiced during the coronavirus may be a good thing to do all the time, huh? I remember I used to see images of Chinese uh, video of their population. They've been wearing masks a long time, way before the coronavirus. Whenever there's a public health issue, it seems. I remember having seen some photographs and videos back in the day, I guess you would say. Uh, so it's not as uncommon in China as it was here. But now I'm beginning to see it more and more here. So maybe it's not a bad idea when we know that we've got these kinds of strains to take some precautionary measures. If nothing else, not to be too close up on people because we don't know what they may have. And now, we're getting ready with this Christmas holiday, it's going to be a lot of folks having Christmas dinners and shopping and just all kinds of different scenarios. So it pays to be careful. And speaking of being careful, these last shopping days as we lead up to Christmas and after Christmas, please be careful. Remember, they say that if you make a major purchase, don't put all your items that you've taken out of boxes. Don't put all your boxes out where the thieves can see what you brought. There's always somebody watching, sitting there waiting to see what we got for Christmas. And they say what we got because as soon as you leave, some of these guys are planning on up to no good. And I hate to say it, but it's true. And so the only way to, not the only way, but one way to uh, uh, safeguard against thievery is first of all they don't know what to steal. That's the first problem. They're taking a gamble and a risk if they just break into somebody's house or break into your vehicle, taking the risk of getting caught, and there may not be anything in the house or in the car. So if they're sitting there watching, waiting to see what you have brought and what you got for Christmas, and they plan to come back and visit you like Santa Claus, huh? When you're not there, then the best thing for you to do is not put your wares out. Don't let people know what gift items you have by putting the boxes out on the street. You just have to wait and tear them up or burn them, or take them to the dump. But just be careful and know that there are people out there that watch. Ladies, I know I don't have to tell you, but every once in a while, I haven't seen it recently, but from time to time, I'll see somebody outside counting their money in front of the store. Now, if I see it, I know there's somebody else sitting there watching, waiting for that opportunity to see who they can take. And so don't count your money out in public, and don't carry your pocketbooks in such a way that somebody could grab it and run. You ladies have options. You may have to go old school, huh? And put your money in a safe place where if somebody does try, they're gonna have a real fight on their hands, a real struggle. They don't have that kind of time, right? So don't make it easy for them, right? And of course, I don't have to tell you if you're out at night, try and stay somewhere that's well lit or have somebody with you, and at the end of the day, just being aware makes a real big difference. Being aware of our surroundings, it's a dangerous world, and as we see, there's a lot of people out there with mental issues. That's the only way I can explain it. Well, spiritual issues too, with the kind of spirit that's out on the street. Wow, look at what happened uh, just last weekend, the weekend before last, between Brown University and the young lady, from Alabama, Ella Cook, one of the two students killed at Brown University. Another mass shooting in the same in Australia. Uh, you know, uh, with the Hanukkah event, the first day of Hanukkah. The father and son who shot so many people there. And so people justify that with themselves. I don't know. I can't see how can you justify just mass murder? I don't care how much you dislike a race of people or a group of folk, regardless of for whatever reason. There's no way you can justify murder. And so that's a sickness. And we know that it's out there. We know there are people out there that think like that. So you just have to kind of, I guess, pray for them and try to stay out of their way. But there's a lot of folks out there with mental issues. And so, we just have to hope that we find a way to identify and diagnose these mental issues before they act on a threat to the community. Let's take this break. And before I do, because yesterday we went off the air for a little while and we came back up. Today we're going to be off. It's planned at 9:30ish, somewhere in that area. We'll be down for repairs. As I told you, we had a rough weekend. We were up and down, on and off, and so we're getting some repairs done so that won't continue to happen. So after I get off this morning, after 9, hopefully we'll stay on, through 9 o'clock, and then afterwards we've got some repairs that are going to happen, and the station will be off the air for a while. Before I take this break, let's go to the phone line. Viewpoint, you're on the air.
I failed to go to my positions all year long. I just haven't, sometimes national things can have bad stuff on you. And having seen the papers, I looked at helping community services. I just think that's the reason for some reason,
And so you didn't do what this year?
I realized that I have failed to go for my various checkups throughout the year. I don't know, for some reason, it's just been a very, I didn't get my shots like I usually get them in September, my flu shots or whatever shots I needed. I just haven't done what I should do.
Yeah, but have you been sick, or has it affected your health in any way? Has that affected your health? Are you feeling okay?
It just so happened that, I'm going to do a better job next year. I promise to. But I heard Mookie talk about the eye drops, the medication that we get from overseas. And she was talking about how expensive it has been. And that's something that I feel that I've neglected. I know my other general practitioner had ordered my, whatever my eye says sometimes. By prescription, when you call the pharmacist, you can get it, and because it can be approved by somebody other physician. But anyway, having done all that, I'm just saying, this year just was a year. But I really neglected my own health because, it was just a depressing year. I'm looking at all of how we talk to each other, and I reminded someone. I said, did we talk to each other that way? I can see my family, my children, TV or TikTok or some of those other social outlets. But anyway, I'm just saying that I guess a lot of that stuff have you confused after we would have had too much of it throughout the year. And this year just been a trying one. Man, but the reason I called, I was so happy to see our mayor walk across the bridge with the monks. Really, that's the kind of stuff that I used to have the energy to participate. I'm glad that our young people is involved doing those same kind of things because that builds our character. People know that all of us around here are not wrong. You know, all of us are not resentful. I hope the mayor will be able to invite our governor, who has never during her term come to one of our jubilees. I know she at one point with some of the delegation that has come from Washington, she met him at the airport, I believe, one year. But as far as coming to Selma for our jubilee, and I do also have, hopefully, we'll listen to more excitement as we gear up this next year, because we're going to some times, and I just want to remind people all of that for this year. We really got to prepare. We got to get better down. We got to learn how to stop being too racist. You know what I'm saying? I want to wrap it on my hand. I'm looking at many of those young people that are killing people on the street. You said you were going to talk about just even but you never get to it yet. So maybe you'll get back to you.
About I was going to talk about which one.
Yes, taking a stance against, and how other people are having to take a stance against this unrighteousness that's happening in our street from these ICE people. And then they have the nerve, the gall, the dignity to say to people, you're above your pay grade. See, I knew all of this stuff was coming in, and when I got my children away from those schools and we really wanted, I'm so glad that I saved my children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for calling. 875-1490 and 1492 are the numbers to call if you have comments or questions. Yeah, I don't remember Bloody Sunday commemoration, but Governor Ivy has been to Selma. She was at Selma University a couple of years ago when there were some announcements that were being made. She came here as part of a delegation when the tornadoes hit. She flew on a helicopter and made some visual inspections of Selma after the tornado of 2023 in January. And I like Governor Ivy. I think, and I'm going to tell you something else. I don't know how many people really have watched and noticed it or not, but I did. And she has had a tremendous amount of participation from women and from other minority groups, including African Americans, in her cabinet, in her that work for her in key positions. And I met her photographer, a Black woman, a couple of years ago. You know, she was good at what she does. You know, and so and she but even before Governor Ivy came in, you know, a lot of people criticize the Republican Party, but I'm reminded. I was watching some history specials here the last several days, and oh no, I was watching Levin. In fact, he got into it in one of, I think, the last program that he did on the history of both the Republican and the Democratic Party in terms of their founding. And at the end of the day, the Republican Party was founded to what? In slavery. Remember, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Frederick Douglass was a Republican. And it was the Democratic Party that promoted and fought for slavery. Now, neither of those parties has changed their names. There are some who argue, well, you know, what used to be the Democrats are now the Republicans and vice versa. But at the end of the day, how they were founded. I think the Republican Party was founded in 1851 or 1850, before the Civil War, and their position was anti-slavery. That's a fact. And so, but over the years, somehow, well, again, propaganda, public relations, the dirty tricks department, however you want to call it, things get crossed up. And many times we falsely have drawn conclusions about, and because of really what the caller a few minutes ago was talking about in terms of the narrative. And when these narratives, we're buying into these narratives. And I've been watching and listening, coming to the mainstream media and legacy media, they're not letting up. And if you're not careful, we get caught up in what their narrative so much, we'll be worried to death from listening to them to do the doomsday narrative, huh? That's all they doomsday, worry. You know, the sky's not falling, Chicken Little, is what I say. But I'm an optimist. I'm a self-described optimist. I see the glass half full. Let's take this break. We'll be back with more right after this.
We're with Barry Parker and our friends at Reliable Chevrolet and GMC. 80 years, Barry.
That's right, George. We've been right here at the same location at 14th Lawrence Street. Also the same family, the Porter family. Bill is here and has his two sons, John and Will, and soon they'll be taking over, so there'll be a third generation that has had the ownership of Reliable Chevrolet GMC.
Now let's talk about what's going on with Chevrolet and GMC. We're coming up on the end of the year. Big time discounts on these 25s that you got left.
That's right, George. We're moving them out right and left. If you're in the market for a 2025 model, I encourage you to come down, get them while they're still available, because the 26s are here and we've got more coming. So we got to make room. Whatever your transportation needs are, we can take care of them right here. And let us get you fixed up so you can be riding today.
Not forget about the pre-owned side and service.
That's right. We've got all kind of makes and models on the pre-owned inventory, from cars to trucks to SUV. And when it comes to getting your vehicle serviced, we have the top service department in Central Alabama right here at Reliable Chevrolet GMC.
And is that fifth oil change still free?
Always free. Not just your first fifth, every fifth oil change. Regardless of how many vehicles you have in the family, each one stands on its own.
To get in touch with Reliable Chevrolet and GMC, what do we do?
872-2337, or check us out on our website at reliablegmc.com. Or best, just come visit us right here at 14th Lawrence Street in downtown Selma.
At Reliable, where they truly have it all.
It's a big world out there, fast-paced and full of challenges. The last thing you need when you have a vehicle accident is more hassle on top of hassle. Wouldn't it be great if you could just go sit down and talk to Mom and Pop? Well, you can. Mom and Pop are alive and well at Auto Beauty Body Shop in Selma. Aaron and Cindy Grimes have owned and operated Auto Beauty Shop for a good while now, and they extend their caring family approach to their customers. Certainly, they have the latest multi-tech equipment and highly trained technicians, and they have an excellent relationship with all the insurance providers. But they have something no other body shop has. They have Aaron and Cindy, the Mom and Pop of vehicle body repair. A simple approach to discussing the damage, the estimate, and the factory quality repairs. Please drive safe, but if you have an accident, ask your tow truck driver to take your vehicle to Mom and Pop Auto Beauty Body Shop, 2001 Highway 14 East, phone 334-872-2248. There are currently no delays. They can get you in today and start your repairs right away.
1490 WHBB, and the caller mentioned earlier about ICE. At the end of the day, those guys are doing their job, and whether or not the kind of alleged extremities are taking place, I don't know. I would caution us to believe half of what we hear and half of what we see, and certainly be careful about the narratives because you have so many hidden agendas. And everybody's trying to push whatever their agenda is, and that's what they want you to buy into. And many times are not being honest about what's really happening. I'm surprised, though, sometimes at the level people in the various positions that allow themselves to get caught up in this. Case in point, the judge in Wisconsin. This is a report filed about, remember the judge that was accused of assisting some illegal aliens elude ICE. Well, she was convicted. I'm not surprised. I kind of thought she might be, but then again, I didn't know. Sometimes, the system would just do a slap on the wrist of its own, but that does not appear to be the case this time. Let's listen to this report to see about what happened with this. This is from online.
This rogue judge out of Wisconsin, you may remember earlier this year, back in April, this judge was accused of helping an illegal migrant who was before her court evade detention and arrest from immigration officials. What happened there was these officials came to serve a warrant at the courthouse where this individual was before this judge, Judge Hannah Dugan in Wisconsin. And when the judge found out about this, that the agents were there waiting, not getting in the way of the proceedings, but waiting until they were over, she caused a pause in the proceedings in her courtroom, went outside and spoke with the agents, told them they weren't allowed to do this, they needed to go talk to the chief judge, so sent them. And while they were distracted going to talk to the chief judge, who actually said, yes, you can do this, you are doing everything right, you had gotten all the security involved. This is actually a place where a lot of times these type of arrests happen because it is seen as safer for the public. If there is a contentious arrest, they have already gone through security. They know that weapons will not be present that could put officers or the individual or the public in greater danger. Chief Judge says, you are allowed to do this. Thank you. Just wait until the proceedings are over. And what did the judge, Hannah Dugan, do during this time? She helped that individual escape out the back, go through her chambers with her attorney, with the individual's attorney, and escape law enforcement. There was a foot chase outside the courthouse, and that individual was apprehended. But it didn't end there, because this judge was accused of stopping and interfering with the enforcement duties of the immigration officials. She was charged with a crime. This crime included 2 counts. One was an obstruction charge against federal law enforcement. The other was a misdemeanor charge that would have been a concealment of an individual for arrest. Yesterday, a jury of her peers convicted her of that obstruction charge, the felony charge. She was acquitted of the misdemeanor concealment charge, but this felony obstruction charge has been handed down by a jury of her peers. They will be appealing it. As a matter of fact, their legal team said this trial required considerable resources to prepare for, and public support for Judge Dugan's defense fund is critical as we prepare for the next phase of this defense, meaning their appeal. This felony conviction could see up to 5 years in jail time. Also, under Wisconsin state law, she will no longer, as a convicted felon, at least at this point, be able to be a judge again in the state of Wisconsin. So there is some accountability. And once again, sometimes we see the wheels of justice turn slowly. But in this case, the event happened in April, and we have a conviction here in December of 2025. And I want you to remember also, this judge tried in some of the pretrial motions to claim that the Supreme Court decision that presidents of the United States have an immunity against being charged with a crime for official acts. That was a defense in pretrial motions that the attorneys for this judge tried to raise. Say basically, look, Supreme Court gave the President of the United States immunity for official acts, therefore I'm immune. It made no logical sense. It was a good try in was obviously not accepted by the judge here. But the whole idea that no one is above the law, and that the left was saying it was so dangerous that the president of the United States had this limited immunity decision by the Supreme Court, which said, listen, if it's within the official acts of the president of the United States, you cannot then try to go after a president for things they did as president as a crime later. That would lead to chaotic, continuous prosecution of former presidents by political enemies. That isn't what happened here. What happened here was a judge that is supposed to be an arbiter of the law, judging, calling balls and strikes, as they say, decided to take the law into her own hands. The individual was before her court for a completely different reason, and U.S. immigration officials came there to serve a warrant, which was issued for this individual, and she ran interference for this individual that was in her courtroom. She went out and tried to stop the agents, distracted them by sending them to talk to the chief judge. And during that time, snuck this individual who had snuck into our country illegally out of the back of her courtroom through her own chambers in an attempt to let them flee justice. That doesn't sound like what we want from judges in this country, but it's what she did. And she had her day in court, and she had a speedy trial. And here we are in December, where she now is a convicted felon under the laws of the United States.
We all need to keep this case in proper perspective, and I hope that all viewers, readers, listeners will pay attention to this. Some have sought to make this about a larger political battle. While this case is serious for all involved, it is ultimately about a single day, a single bad day in a public courthouse. The defendant is certainly not evil, nor is she a martyr for some greater cause. It was a criminal case like many that make their way through this courthouse every day, and we all must accept the verdict peacefully.
And I think the concern from the U.S. attorney there is warranted, that because of the high stakes of this, because of the emotions that go into this, we saw how bad the riots in L.A. and other places where many other people were trying to obstruct federal law enforcement from doing their job, how it broke out. Cars being set on fire. It required a National Guard response from the President of the United States. The U.S. attorney is trying to avoid that breaking out in Milwaukee in the Christmas holiday season, saying, listen, we did our job. There is a conviction, but you can voice yourself peacefully, but let's not cause havoc over this conviction. And I think the process played out well. But to that point as well, I understand what the U.S. attorney is trying to do there and agree with that position from the U.S. attorney. Instead of him coming out and saying, this is a warning to every single person in the country that you shall not obstruct. But in reality, that is what it is. Because we have seen rogue judges since day one of the new Trump administration, whether it be nationwide injunctions, which we had to fight all the way to the Supreme Court, whether it be the egregious act of this judge of trying to take the law into her own hands. It should be a statement for judges that you are not above the law. It is not your job to be the jury in a federal immigration case that is not before you when there is a warrant out for someone's arrest, to decide then and there that you are going to help someone flee.
And and that is rare when that happens. That's how I was, I kind of knew that from what was described that she had broken the federal law, and certainly in terms of intervening with ICE. But I was surprised to see that she was held accountable. And so it does happen. A very unfortunate, taking a look at that whole immigration piece. I've even heard people say, well, if you don't let immigrants, well, first of all, there's a difference between immigration and illegal immigration. I always think about Ellis Island in New York and how when there was a mass migration from Europe into the United States, in the early 1900s or the early 20th century, whichever you prefer to use. When they came in from Italy and from other countries, they were taken to Ellis Island. The first thing they did was they had to get a medical checkup to make sure they didn't have some contagious disease that would spread in the population. And then they let them, but they were going through the proper steps and the proper protocol to come into the country. I had a person tell me here recently, a Black woman, I'm not going to say who she is or what, but she told me she tried to apply for citizenship in Ghana, Africa, and was denied. They wouldn't let her become a citizen. But anybody can come into the United States and it's all right. We'll fight for illegal immigrants. And then others say, well, if you don't have immigrants, who's going to pick the cotton? Who's going to pick the fruits? But I heard somebody else point out that today's agriculture doesn't use people. The machines are doing most of the picking. The machines get the cotton now. The machines get a lot of the vegetables, and so they don't. It's not the farming industry is not as dependent on human capital as it used to be because of automation. But even then, there are some groups that come into the country, and I remember when I was in North Florida, I met a lot of Mexican immigrants, but they were here legally. And when the season came for them to do what they did in Florida, they had passes. They were temporary, but they had gone through a legal process and they were working legally for a lot of the farmers. Now, we have a real convenient memory, but just 2 years ago, have we forgotten the images of the hundreds of thousands of people crossing over into the United States from Mexico, coming from all over the world? Have we forgotten that? And how they battled in some cases with ICE agents and overwhelmed them, pushed their way through, and now when they go to do videos to see what's happening at the border, it's down to zero. And we've got people who are advocating for illegal immigrants. Immigration, yes, but not illegal. We don't know what you're getting with illegal immigrants. So what can I tell you? But everybody's got a different view on that. Yesterday I saw former Councilman Johnny LaShore. I got to say good morning to him. It was good seeing him. He looks well. And I thought about Councilwoman Benny Ruth Crenshaw. I've seen her at a few events over the last several months. I want to say good morning to her and her husband, Danny Crenshaw. I intend to say hi to folks. I don't want to get started because I have got a whole long list of people that I would like to say hello to. I don't know how many people remember, but Danny Crenshaw was a professional basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers years ago. Now he's an attorney. I don't know what he's doing these days. I don't see him. I used to run into him. I see him from time to time. But I just wanted to say good morning to the Crenshaw family and to the LaShores. Good morning to you. Let's take this break. Be back with more after this.
Shop reminds you the white-tailed deer can do some damage to your vehicle. If you hit a deer and need repair, call Hughes Body Shop, 334-875-4470. Your deer damage vehicle repair specialist. Hughes Body Shop.
Banking the way it should be at First Cahaba Bank means you never have to worry about the season or the weather with online banking. It's always there and always on, 24/7, 365, even on holidays.
I'm Richard Walters, president of First Cahaba Bank, here to let you know that all of our online banking resources have been invaluable to our First Cahaba customers. Although our lobbies are open, personal and business customers have discovered how convenient and easy it has become to manage financial resources without having to come inside the bank. And all of our online services, including mobile banking app, are free. Visit firstcahaba.com to get all of the information, or feel free to call any of our locations in Selma, Troy, or Gulf Shores for any questions or information. Banking the way it should be at First Cahaba Bank means we are constantly focused on the very latest technology for customer convenience and overall satisfaction. We would love for you to join our growing community bank family. First Cahaba Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
1490 WHBB. And speaking about Miss Benny Ruth Crenshaw, her brother Bobby Johnson, the late Bobby Johnson. When I started in radio, I was at WTQX and started doing sports, but also but I became a disc jockey as well. And one of the people that would call me was her brother, Bobby Johnson. he was a big Rick James fan, and we became friends. And so every once in a while, I'll think about Bobby Johnson. He was a veteran, and a real good guy, just down to earth people. And he pointed out some real important things as I was a teenager. And didn't know that I was dealing with a lot of, I guess the best way to put it is treachery. when it's like walking through a field of snakes and not knowing it, huh? Well, that happens sometimes, and there's a lot of that going on. That a lot of that happens. The Selma has a lot of different personalities and a lot of different levels when you peel back the layers. But that's everywhere you go. After all, everywhere you go is basically the same, just different levels of it. The larger the city, the more of it you run into. But at the top, it all ends up being the same practices, the same kinds of deceitfulness or truthfulness. The politics is the same, some more intense than others. The dirty tricks department is everywhere I go. I've seen that's one group I can't seem to get rid of them. The dirty tricks department is everywhere. They do their job. they stay on top of it. Let's take this break, and I'll be back with more after this.
Every woman's life is a journey, and every journey is unique. No matter where life takes you, you deserve compassionate health care every step of the way. Vaughn OBGYN Associates will meet your unique health needs at each stage of your life. Time for your first mammogram, ready to start a family, or need postmenopausal care? Come see the Women's Health Team at Vaughn OBGYN Associates for services close to home. New patients welcome. Most insurance plans accepted, including Medicaid. Be well, live well. That's why we're here.
Grays on Broad has a Christmas present to you. Come in to the beautifully decorated Grays on Broad Furniture Store in Selma and take advantage of 30% savings on all furniture, 15% off on lazy boy recliners, mattresses, and appliances. There's 12-month interest-free financing, and Miss Lisa and Miss Margaret would love to help you find just what you're looking for. Great at 514 Broad Street, Historic Selma.
Good morning, I'm Jed Davis. Here's what's happening in the news on this Tuesday. The Montgomery Fire Department wants answers after a deadly fire claimed the life of an 8-year-old boy. It happened early Sunday morning at the Woodley Terrace Apartments in Montgomery. Along with the boy who died, his sister and another adult were critically injured. Now Montgomery Fire Department is investigating the apartment complex, making sure everything was up to code. Another baby was found safe and okay in one of Montgomery's Safe Haven baby boxes. The baby boy was dropped off at a fire station on Court Street. It's the second time a baby has been surrendered since the program came to Montgomery back in May. That baby was just hours old and taken to the hospital. His case will now be referred to DHR. A group of Buddhist monks is walking across the country and making a stop in Montgomery. It's the Walk for Peace mission. People will be able to meet the monks this morning at the Union Station train shed at 7:45. There will be a peace gathering at City Hall around 8:30. That's your news on this Tuesday.
1490 WHBB. Don't forget, after somewhere between 9 and 9:30, I think we'll be off the air. For how long, I don't know. We'll be down for repairs, WHBB. And as you know, over the weekend, we had some technical issues. And so hopefully those issues can be resolved today. Speaking of Governor Ivey, she signed an executive order establishing Alabama Rural Health Transformation Advisory Group, order number 741. This was last week. In fact, I meant to mention it. I don't think I did, though. This was to establish the Alabama Rural Health Transformation Advisory Group. The advisory group will advise the governor on the progress, policy development, and implementation of Alabama's Rural Health Transformation Program, ARHTP, after its anticipated launch in January. The creation of the Rural Health Transformation Advisory Group enables Alabama to hit the ground running once the state's new comprehensive rural health care agency strategy is green-lighted by the Trump administration, said Governor Ivey. The members of this group will help ensure our program initiate positive information transformations to the way Alabamians receive quality health care, and those transformative investments in policies are sustainable. You know, this health thing is important. Some of it we can impact. You know, it's good if you can find a primary health care provider that you're comfortable with and that you trust the judgment. And then if we're prescribed medicines and drugs, take the medicine. Don't think that because you're feeling all right and you feel well that it's not necessary. I'm not the doctor. You know, we're not the doctor, right? If you trust your primary healthcare provider, trust them to do for you to use to follow their instructions, right? Viewpoint, you're on the air.
Yeah, and I called back because I wanted to be sure and share another comment before the year ends. And it has to do with, by the way, Judge Dugan, I think she did the right thing, and I think she's standing up for her integrity, and I think it all is going to come out in wash. When a lot of people get prosecuted for much worse and talking about sticking people out of the back doors, and believe me, they do that in politics and in government and in court cases all the time. So it just makes an example out of her. That's all this is about. But anyway, I also wanted to point out another thing that we are going to have to look forward to in the new year. Anyway, when it has to do with your equipment, I wasn't trying to insult you when I said that you need to get you some updated equipment in your studio. What I was pointing out is during the time that you had the politicians there, many of them were talking about how outdated and how outdated and how you had to pass the microphone around, and you saw their gestures. A lot of times when older people try to say things, we're not trying to push you or down, but we're trying to let you know you can come and think because young people know all of them.
Well, but there's one thing that you forget, and that is number one. We'll look over on the FM. 105.3 has been off for months, and many times it's because what you're talking about takes money, and it's easy to spend somebody else's money. You know, I don't do that, and I used to own 2 stations. So I understand that. This station is the oldest station in Selma. Huh?
But you just recorded that there's going to be some more work, you know.
Well, and that's that's maintenance. We're in the process of correcting it, but it costs money. I'm not going to spend somebody else's money. That's easy for me to say, huh? That's why I'm here. So that when the equipment fails, I can take up the slack. That's what experience does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The show must go on. That's the bottom line.
Hey, man, life is a journey. Remember that.
Oh, no doubt. I've been on it. Look, when you've lived through 7 states, I have forgotten how many cities I've lived in. And the government, Uncle Sam wasn't paying my way. I had to earn my way. I know all about the journey through the grace of God.
All right. I just want to remind us that because we're going on another journey because we had to do something about one man, one vote. Okay? Don't forget, one man, one vote. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for calling. Yep. 875-1490 and 1492 are the numbers to call if you have comments or questions. I think Mike Reynolds and George Henry and ownership and management of Broad South Communications does an excellent job of being able to maintain and serve the community. I've worked for a lot of different organizations, and this is probably the best organization I've worked for, in terms of its approach and attitude towards the community. Every organization, every media company is not user friendly. It's not listener friendly, and so we are, we're about the community, and I think folks know that. So yeah, no, this is old. We got some old equipment here because the station is the oldest station, and so stuff don't, it's not cheap. So it's easy to say, why don't you get some new equipment? Why don't you go ahead and spend $500,000 and upgrade? Well, I may be exaggerating in terms of what would go in here, but still, money is money. And hey, you can hear me, can't you? if you can hear me, it's working. That may sound a little crazy, but hey, that's the nature of the beast. But I appreciate the comment. But I don't take it personal. I've got pretty thick skin, folks. I think some people know that already. I couldn't be in this position and not have thick skin. Others have tried and have decided that they walked away from it because it takes a certain temperament to be able to wade through diverse opinions and not take it personal, and so that's that by itself, and I'm running into more and more people that tell me, that they listen. They don't call, but they listen, and thank you so much. Thank you for listening and supporting us, and I love my audience and I love the station, and thank God I love what I do, even though when it gets hard sometimes, but God is good, and so He has prepared me. And who would have ever guessed when I started in radio, 1974, my father and Ace Anderson were classmates from high school and elementary, I guess from elementary on through. And when my father came back, he was Ace Anderson's campaign manager. Ace ran for coroner. We were laughing about it the other day because he was running for coroner, but he was also a funeral home director. So where the bodies were going to go if he had. People assumed that if he had won coroner, he was going to most of the black bodies were going to his funeral, the Anderson Funeral Home, and so that cost him some votes. But my father was his campaign manager. He won the first phase of the election, but it went into a runoff. He lost the runoff. And Ace said to my father, he said, I can't afford to pay you what you've done for me, but I would like to teach your son radio. He looks like he's got the basics, but he needs. And so I was pressed in the service. And my father would take me, drop me off at the radio station 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was doing sports, and he'd come back and pick me up and then take me to Selma High School. So I'd be to school on time. I would have never guessed that what I was learning starting at the age of 14, that it would have become a profession, but it did, and I've been able to go through all over the country, and was good enough to be competitive enough to be at the top. I don't think I was ever less than number 3. Anyway, that's another story. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow morning, the good Lord willing. Stay tuned for Fox News up next on WHBB Selma. We may be off the air around 9:30.
But wait, I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. A new report showing a stronger economy than economists predicted, delayed 2 months by the long government shutdown.
The official scorecard of the economy, the gross domestic product, grew at a much faster than expected pace in the third quarter, 4.3%, the highest since the same period in 2023.
Fox's Lillian Wu. Now, the president just posted on Truth Social, the tariffs he imposed on imports are responsible for what he calls great economic numbers, adding